What is up? What is up? Let me get our little intro. All right, Mr. Trading Nomadic, how we doing tonight?
Great, brother. How you doing?
I'm good. Cannot complain. Let's see what we got. Oh, we got the Doge chart pulled up here. There we
Yeah,
go. Let's start.
I figured this was one we would probably get some questions about right off the bat. So I'm going to jump the gun here. We did talk about Doge last week. We've talked about it a few times on this stream, and the magic question of the hour is how high can Doge go? Last week we talked about this harmonic structure in orange here, which is a bullish harmonic. It's an XABCD pattern. And this is based on this structure. This is where I got my original targets on Doge. On a harmonic structure like this, generally your C and your A points are going to be some of your first targets, but further than that, it is not up on my daily, but further than that, you want to take Fibonacci retracement tool on the XA wave of this harmonic structure, which would give you, it's going to give you, it's a little bit off here, but my original target we talked about last week was 61 cents, and that is the 1618 retracement off of the XA leg on this asset. And if you look right here this morning, we hit that perfectly. And we pulled back a little bit, but I mean, that's to be expected. Nothing goes straight up forever. And I mean, basically, that's what Doge has been doing ever since it created this pattern. And the D point here is the pattern completion. And you could see just over and over and over again, you've been getting these higher lows, which implies accumulation. It's just been stepping its way up the Fibonacci retracement until you get more demand than there is supply in this zone, and that's when you get the price markup. You get accumulation, acceleration, which is started happening here after these three valleys on the way up, and it just goes ballistic. That's, when the demand's higher than the supply, that's when you start getting the price markup. And like a glove, we ended up hitting the 1618 at 61 cents this morning. I did take my position out. I'm a trader. I have targets. I have a plan. I always stick to it. And that's important with trading because it really takes the emotion out of it in a lot of the cases. And when we pulled back this morning, let me put this on a lower time frame here, if I don't make everybody dizzy in the process. But you can see we hit that 61 point, we pulled back. I'm kind of looking at as a base to this zone, this new zone that we're creating at about 48, 49 cents. That's going to be a zone that I don't want to break. If this asset is going to continue up, which I believe it is going to, you want to see it stay above this. You want to see the same type of structuring that we had created, that had painted, on the lower areas where we've seen this accumulation. And right now, that's what we're getting. We got this pullback almost down to that neckline, that critical ice line down here that I've got in red. We've made another wave up. We've found some support above this 53 zone, and that's kind of where we're at. I haven't really looked. I wouldn't look for harmonics on a low time frame like this, but I mean, you could start arguing that we are starting to get, or actually we might have completed. It looks like a shark here, or a bat. I'm sorry. And, this is kind of what we'd want to see. If this harmonic was valid and is playing out, you want to see that D, just like we saw on the lower point, and then a spring. And you could see we've gotten that spring. Again, this is on a 5-minute chart. You can only take it for a grain of salt, because if the higher time frames don't begin to reflect the same information we're seeing on the lower time frames, this could be a very short-term move. But we have sprung off the pattern completion zone. It does look like it's trying to make some higher highs. And this is the context you want to see a harmonic develop like this. Same thing. You get that initial impulse up, and then you got this momentum shifting structure off of this retracement here, and this will start to bring that price back up and test some of these higher levels again. For right now, 61 is going to be the top of our zone. And you take out that harmonic completely, we're making some higher lows. We haven't started to make any higher highs. We're still coming down. But if we do start to make some higher highs, an asset like this is really tough to use traditional technical analysis, but surprisingly, Doge has been one of the most remarkably consistent assets. The chart, granted, a lot of people have reservations. It's a meme coin. It's a joke. It's this, it's that, whatever you want to call it. When I trade, I don't trade on sentiment. I don't trade on even fundamentals so much. It's what the chart is saying is what I listen to. And right now, you're seeing Doge could very well have accumulated. You're starting to make higher lows. The accumulation is taking place. You could see this volume has been slowing down on the way down here, and it looks like it's perking up again. Again, this is a 5-minute chart, and until we break that 61, it could bounce around just like we did in the last zone that we were looking at earlier, right? And Doge is an asset that I talked about. The same type of structuring presented itself, all the way down. I don't have it charted on this chart anymore, but it's the same thing, just over and over, creating a new zone where traders, can take their positions. You'll get that initial sell-off, and then you get the accumulation. We spent a lot of time in this zone, but once it caught up, we moved up to this zone. Same thing. You got that impulse up. You've got the consolidation. You've got accumulation, acceleration, and then a price markup. So, this is a lower time frame, but that's the same type of thing we want to see here. You're going to want to see higher lows. It might sell off a couple times, but as long as we keep making higher lows, it shows that there's more market participants that own this asset, and that's what you want. That's the signature you want to look for after a sell-off. You want to check your oscillators right here between these 2 points. You've got lower prices, but if you look at the negative momentum is starting to wane. There's less negative momentum pulling this price down, and eventually that's when you get bullish divergence, which will start to drive that asset up. It means that the sellers have lost control, and there's too much demand for this particular asset, and that's when the bulls step in. That's when it becomes a buyer's market. We're not trending down anymore once the bulls are in control, and we very well could be at that point. Again, like I said, until we get over 61, I would take it for a grain of salt. I mean, you saw how long we have consolidated inside of one of these zones with Doge specifically previously. So, I mean, this could take some time to develop. We might, you also have to think about when trading any of these altcoins, you have to think about Bitcoin as well. You know, any asset in the cryptocurrency market, as a general rule of thumb, will react to Bitcoin. If Bitcoin's doing well, you know, the whole market does well. And that goes for Ethereum too. And that's one I'm going to take a look at after this. You know, with Bitcoin selling off, that is going to drag the rest of the market down. You do have some assets that are starting to lose that magnetism. They're starting to kind of, for a lack of better words, they're starting to think on their own a little bit. You know, they're starting to gain strength outside of the meta. And Doge has been one of those. You know, some people have actually looked at the correlation between, you know, when Bitcoin was selling off up at, you know, when we were above 60,000, I forget what the exact all-time high was, but you could see a correlation. When Bitcoin started selling off, Doge was, you know, making new highs, making new lows. And that's what you want to see. If Bitcoin does decide to turn around, you know, whether it's tonight, whether it's later this week, when and if, you're going to see the whole rest of the market follow along. And with altcoins, that's kind of my strategy. I like when Bitcoin takes a dive, because you'll get nice consolidation structures forming after a lot of the altcoins have taken, you know, they've bled out a little bit. Then they start forming harmonics. They start showing their cards and letting you know that there's accumulation taking place. You know, the buyers are coming in. And ultimately, it's giving you another chance at some of these assets that have been marked up so much. It gives you another chance to get on board, you know, find a nice area of support where you can enter and also have, you know, minimal losses if you get stopped out. And that's, I mean, that's the fundamentals of my trading strategy. I go for these moves. You know, when I see stuff like this, that's when I position myself, you know, with a clear exit strategy always. Because first and foremost, protecting your capital lets you trade another day. While we're on the subject, let's take a look at ETH. I'm going to zoom out here. ETH is one we talked about a couple times on this stream. I believe it was last week. What's today's date? Yeah, I mean, I think on stream last week, we were somewhere in this lower zone here with ETH. We had this target range. My personal target was, psychologically, you would think, you know, $3,000, but we did have some fib levels up in this 3,100 zone, and on a different chart I had marked out 3,300, and literally right down to the penny, that's where we ended up. With Bitcoin selling off, you know, it is hard for Ethereum to continue to make higher prices. They are still correlated. But again, that's it. The thing that really convinced me that ETH was going to make a massive breakout when we were down in this zone is if we pull up the Ethereum to Bitcoin pairs. Now, this is what really sold me. So, you know, if anyone who's not familiar with how Bitcoin pairs work, it's basically Ethereum in denominations of Bitcoin. You know, just like you would with, you know, any other asset in comparison to the US dollar, this is the same idea, except with Ethereum and Bitcoin. And if you look, Ethereum has been down in the dumps when compared to Bitcoin since, you know, basically, I would say, it looks like the blow off top after 2017 when that bull run ended. But if you look, last year, it kind of started making a curl upwards. You know, it has shown you that there's been accumulation taking place. Every time you make these higher lows, that means there's more market participants that own this asset. You know, the price is slowly making higher lows. It was making higher highs. And then I've got this neckline drawn in here. And this dates all the way back to March 16th. And you could see right around the turn of the year, coming into 2021, we started breaking that neckline. We sprung above the old neckline, above old resistance. We came back down and we tested old resistance as support. And if you're looking at Ethereum from about March 29th, after we got that retest, it's been straight up. And this is on a weekly chart. And from that point, Ethereum to Bitcoin, the pair, has appreciated 100%. And obviously, you got to understand, this is reflective of how Ethereum is going to react to the US dollar, right? If Bitcoin is, in comparison to Bitcoin, gaining value, you know, Bitcoin's also gaining value at the same time. Well, nothing exciting recently. Bitcoin's kind of been stagnant, bouncing around a little bit in a zone, but all the same, that reflects, if we go back to the US dollar pair with Ethereum and look at same thing, right around the first of the month or the first of the year, it's been just on a tear completely. And the same thing, if we look at the price range from the beginning of the year, Ethereum's up from, you know, just about the first of the year, 383%. And it's the same kind of structure we were looking at in the Bitcoin pair. You've got this old neckline here from, what is it, August 28th of 2017. Same thing, you know, last summer we tried getting above it, broke down a little bit, and this is when Bitcoin was rallying. So that probably drove down the pair, the Ethereum to Bitcoin pair a little bit. And, you know, once we got over this old resistance, it's just been straight up. Now I am looking at Ethereum at the moment. We're trying to find, you know, signs of support up in this zone. And, you know, this was my old target. We did come back down, it looks like, and we did retest this. Whether we're going to come back down and, you know, get some candle closes in this area, it's yet to be seen. But on the 4-hour chart here, you know, we don't have bearish divergence yet, because we're still making higher highs of positive momentum. But you can see the positive momentum is, you know, coming down a little bit. The RSI was all the way up to about 94, which is wild. In crypto, not so much, but standard traditional markets, that's pretty wild. And same thing with the RSI being at these levels, it shows that the asset is overbought. And since it reached that peak, presumably right around the time that Ethereum was at its highest level, it did start to come down a little bit. And what we would want to see on the 4-hour chart here is either this positive momentum start to curl back up, or if we do end up getting some negative momentum histograms in red, you want to see, you don't want to see them come down as far as they did back here April 30th. And if they do come down a little bit here and they're not as strong as this previous histogram here on the MACD, then you would get bullish convergence, which is an indication that the bullish trend is going to continue. You do want to wait for that until you've got, you know, more information about what this asset is doing, it's tough to say, hey, this is a good place to take out a position on Ethereum, especially after the monstrous run that it's been on. But I'm personally bullish with Ethereum. I do think it's got a lot more room to grow. If you pull up the daily chart, we have not seen waning positive momentum on the daily chart just yet, which that's a positive thing. The daily is king. But if you look at the RSI here, we are again at the same level we were back here April 15th, making new highs. So there's a good chance we're going to get a pullback here on the RSI a little bit. Maybe come down. We sprung above that this mark right here, came back down, and if we give this a retest, that'll give the RSI a little bit more room to run to the upside. And if you're looking at the weekly RSI, it's the same thing. It's just at absurd levels here. So until we get some more information on the 4-hour chart showing that this consolidation, this correction back down to support is ending, I would hold off on ETH. I wouldn't add. I wouldn't enter a position because if Bitcoin sells off any further, I mean, this asset could come back down and retest, some of these lower levels here. And it's kind of a waiting game at this point. You always want an edge when you're taking a trade. You always want a clear definition of support and resistance levels, and you want targets. And if we do end up trending higher on Ethereum, 4,082 is the next zone I'm looking for, which is the 3618 Fibonacci retracement. And higher than that, I mean, you would think psychologically, I've seen a lot of talk about the $5,000 zone for Ethereum, and I wouldn't rule it out. That's not trading advice. That's just opinion. Especially in these type of markets, once you get hype, once you get the momentum going, it's crypto. You always end up hitting just astronomical targets above and beyond what anyone could have expected. But just because I'm bullish on these higher targets does not mean I'm taking any new positions on Ethereum. I did trim back a little bit when we were up at that 3,300 mark, which is just about where we're at right now. And I mean, if you look on the 4-hour chart here, you've got definite resistance level at 34.31, and then above that you do have that 34.82 zone, which that's what I want to see broken. If we start to show signs of accumulation and support at these zones, which it does kind of look like we've potentially formed a bottom here. You have both of these double bottoms here at just about the same zone at 32.33. That could arguably be the floor for now, but until we get a little more information, I'm being cautious, especially with Bitcoin kind of teeter-tottering. Since we're on that subject, I'm going to pull up Bitcoin here, which I'll take this away. Bitcoin made it up to 58,925, which has been kind of a resistance zone, dating back. Let's see. You zoom out here. If we're looking on the daily chart, you got this double top here. We had at 57.4, and then once again over here you've got a double top at 58.9. So I'm kind of looking at this zone right here. That's obviously there's some strong resistance in that area. And if you look on the chart, if you look, this is on the 1 hour chart. We were presented this black swan. This is another harmonic pattern, and the pattern completion zone of the black swan is right at the top of our resistance zone. So this is a pullback. It was kind of expected. If you were watching these lower time frame charts, and again, it's not without due cause. We've had that nice run up ever since we put in a confirmation low on the bullish Gartley, or I'm sorry, the bullish cipher pattern. We had a confirmation low down at 47, and it's just been, a smooth ride up since that zone. So we've hit old resistance, we've come back down, but I've got this zone in here between 52.2, which was the original spring, and then back test, and then we made some higher highs, hit some resistance up here, and we've come back down to that support. But if you notice, we have made a higher low, which would imply accumulation, and arguably we've got this bullish shark harmonic, and it's the same type of structure we were looking at on Doge. It's a bullish harmonic. They kind of give you this M formation. It's an X A B C D pattern, and the same thing that we saw on this big cipher pattern. You're going to have the pattern completion, and you'll usually get a reaction, which is an impulse up, and then a lot of the times you'll get a confirmation low where the asset initially reacts to the pattern completion zone, and then it comes back down once again, just confirming that what was once support is support. You want that confirmation low before the asset starts to make higher highs. It basically lets traders know that, what, we've got a bottom in. This would be it would be an area where you could potentially take another long, and that's what I'm watching. I would like to see personally, before I take another position on Bitcoin, I would like to see that confirmation low. We do have on the MACD here, mind you, this is on the 1 hour chart. I usually like to look to the 4 hour for swing trading, because it gives you bigger moves, more powerful moves. You've got more confirmation with a 4 hour chart. But sometimes looking at the 1 hour chart will, kind of give you a sneak peek at what the 4 hour chart might be developing. And if we look at the MACD here, you've got the price making lower lows, and then you've got less negative momentum drawing this asset down. So that would imply that there's bullish divergence forming here, which, again, if you haven't followed this stream, bullish divergence is the point at which the sellers lose control and the bulls take over. So that's potential. And if you look down here at the RSI, you don't have bullish divergence, but it is confluent with what's happening up here, right? If the RSI begins to make higher highs, which it looks like we've gotten a reaction at the same point that the MACD is saying that the sellers are losing control, the RSI is now, making some higher highs. It looks like we sprung. It's same way I would look at a chart, as having a spring and then a back test. It's kind of what the RSI is doing here. So it could be an early indication that we're going to start to at least attempt to test some of these highs again, with short-term targets. If we did start to make a break to the upside on Bitcoin, I would be looking next target up, 62.4, and that would be the Fibonacci retracement of this C to D leg. 68, which would be a new all-time high for Bitcoin. 2618 is not a target of this harmonic, but if you look, I believe that 68 zone is also confluent with one of the Fibonacci retracements from the bigger structure. And yes, it's actually the 1272 of the bullish cipher pattern, which is a target of the bullish cipher pattern. So you've got the bigger structure saying that, you know, we could possibly be looking at that 68, or I'm sorry, 66 is the 1272 of the cipher, and then 68 is going to be, you know, the 2618 of this structure here. So you've kind of got confluence, generally speaking, in this zone. You know, if we do end up breaking this high down here, this resistance we hit yesterday on Bitcoin, you know, first place I'm looking is 62.4, and then this 66 to 68 range. And again, if we break that 66, if we break up to the 66 to 68 range, it could get a little bit silly after that, because that will be all-time highs. Bitcoin will be entering price discovery, and you know, once you reach those levels, you don't have resistance and support levels predefined. You know, it's price discovery. I've got this target here on Bitcoin. I've been shouting out ever since we initially broke up into this zone. My 71,820 target is it is a mixture of this XA leg of the bullish cipher. I believe it was the 100% measured move of this formation over here, the cup and handle, bearish shark, I believe. Whatever you want to call it, it was the 100% measured move, and it was also confluent with some trend projections from history on this asset. So it's hard to say until we get a little bit more information what's happening here, but as long as we hold this 53,000 zone on Bitcoin and continue to make higher lows, it's the same thing we were talking about with Doge. You've got more market participants coming in and buying, and you'll make higher lows and accumulate until you do break this resistance and this resistance. And then it's anyone's guess from there. I mean, the best I could do, and the best anyone can really do at that point, is look at some of these Fibonacci levels. You know, if we're looking at these moon target Fibonacci retracements, the 2618 would bring us up to about $62 or $92,000. The 272 is about 85, but nobody can really predict what's going to happen with that. Those are just targets that you know, traders might come in and set their, you know, take profit levels at, which is why we would refer to those if we were looking for targets on Bitcoin. And Bitcoin has a lot of other things going for it, as far as, you know, what's driving this price up, and it boils down to a supply issue. With Bitcoin, only a certain amount of Bitcoins will ever be mined. That you can't inflate it, you can't add extra supply, and a lot of the buying that has happened this year has come from institutions. It's come from corporations. It's come from, you know, other countries. You're talking about serious money pouring into this asset PayPal and Square alone buy up each independently every single Bitcoin that is mined every single day. Not some days, every single day. They buy, between the two of them, they buy twice as many Bitcoin than there are that are actually mined. And that doesn't leave a lot for everybody else. I read a study earlier this week saying that if Bitcoin keeps leaving Coinbase, specifically leaving the exchange, there won't be any left to trade on Coinbase at all. After, I think they said it would take approximately, at this rate, 452 days for that to happen. But again, with the rising interest in Bitcoin, with the inflationary things that are going on right now, with institutional investors, they're buying, and they're not buying because they want to trade. They don't, they're not looking for, hey, I'm going to buy it here, sell up here. They're buying it and they're holding it and they're locking it up. It's being taken off the exchange day after day, week after week. And when that supply shock catches up, that's when, you keep hearing all these different articles coming out saying, oh, Bitcoin, 300,000, 200,000, 100, whatever the case is. It's not so crazy when you understand what's going on with the supply. Again, it's an asset that can't be inflated. You can't create more, and it's in high demand. And it's the same thing we were talking about earlier. When more market participants are buying and holding, you get these higher lows over and over and over again, until the demand outweighs the supply, and then you get drastic price markups. And I got a feeling at some point, it's hard to really call when that's going to happen, but it's gonna happen, in my opinion, and it's going to drive this price up much higher. And my whole thought process behind it is, once people see, that supply shock starting to hit this asset and the price gets marked up, and you see, the drastic swings, you're going to start to get the FOMO, every you kind of get, if you remember 2017, if you've been in this space that long, you kind of get this madness going behind. Everybody's racing to accumulate or to, acquire a position. And between the supply shock and the hype and stuff like that, that's when you might get these crazy numbers. And it same thing with Ethereum. I mean, that's, if you look at Ethereum, it's just been on an absolute tear, and that's why Ethereum, one of the antagonists, I believe, to this run up is the new protocol that Ethereum's releasing, where they will be burning gas fees, essentially lowering the supply of Ethereum, which at the same time is going to cause an effect, drive the price up over time. As the supply diminishes, the asset will appreciate accordingly. So, I mean, it's an interesting space this year. I've spent a lot more time, especially recently, looking at crypto charts, trying to follow the wave, and yeah, it's, the more information we get coming in, as far as targets go, it'll be a lot easier to call out targets on where this asset might go next. But personally, I think this 71.8 is going to be the next major resistance that we hit on top of all-time highs. And if anybody has any tickers, I think we got a few minutes left. Started a little bit late today, but if anyone has anything they want me to take a look at, and you know what? I thought it was a dead chat this whole time. I didn't have the right chat brought up. So I apologize, guys, if anyone's been saying anything in chat. I didn't have the screen up, so you guys can pick on me here. Doge, as far as going up over $1, again, that's something that's hard to call. But if it gives you some hopium, the guy who patented all these harmonic patterns that I use in my trading strategy actually thinks that Doge is going to $1.65, I believe, is his target. So to take that with a grain of salt. That's not trading advice. I do have a small position left in Doge because it's crypto. That's generally how I like. I'll take the majority of my position out at my targets, which I did this morning. And once we get some support, I might add back in at a lower level. But ultimately, I do leave a small position in for when the crazy stuff happens. And if we do end up hitting, like I do have some targets up here on Doge at 83 cents. I do think that's going to be one of the next major levels if we do break above this 61-cent area. 94 cents is another area I'm looking at. $1.28, and these are just fib projections. There's no real analysis behind it other than if it goes into price discovery, you will have just like this 1618. These are just areas that traders might set up take profit zones using Fibonacci retracements. And I believe this is Scott Carney. That's the guy who patented a lot of these harmonics. His target's up here at about 163. I think specifically he said 165. So if you guys, if you're looking at some of these higher targets, if you are still holding Doge, perhaps consider, taking some profits at some of these levels. That's usually what I do. ETC, if you guys, if I missed anybody's request because I didn't have the chat up, I'm on Twitter at Trade Nomadic. If you guys want to message me some tickers to look at, I am going to be doing some charting tonight. I'll get to as many of them as I can for you guys. I do apologize for that. ETC, this is one I took profit on today, and it's the same idea. Look at this. It's the same idea that I had with Ethereum that made me so bullish on Ethereum Classic, is because if you look at, and I posted this one on Twitter, I think last week, the ETC Bitcoin pair is showing the same stuff that we're looking for. You got this impulse up, it broke down, and you've got, if you look at some of these lower time frames, you can see it a little bit better. If you zoom in on ETC, it's the same thing. You've got your impulse up, you come back down to an area that seemingly found support at, which is confluent with this double bottom here before the blow off. And it's the same thing. You got this rounding bottom structure developing. And at this point, if you looked on the MACD, you've got, where is it? You've got prices going up from this point to this point, making higher lows, which would imply accumulation. And at the same time, you've got lower levels of negative momentum. And that's hidden bullish divergence. It's not a reversal indicator, it's a continuation indicator. And that just means that as these higher lows are put in, this is telling you that that bull trend is going to continue after this point. And if you look we've got that rounding bottom accumulation. We had a clear sell wall at about 6,381 sats. And once we broke that, I mean, you see what happened here. This asset appreciated, and it looks like it's still going at the moment. It's up 112% since the first of the month. And I use those pairs, the Bitcoin pairs, it kind of, maybe a confirmation. If you start seeing a markup on the US dollar pair and you look at the Bitcoin pair and it's telling you the same thing, it can, kind of give you an edge, at least in my opinion, because if it's marking up on both charts, you're going to start seeing some higher prices, of course. But real quick on ETC, this one's, again, is going to be hard. It's in price discovery mode. But using some of these Fibonacci retracements, we broke through the 1618 at $65. You might, if it continues in this trend, which is, you think eventually it's going to run out of fuel. You've got 81 cents up at the 272, and then the next major target that I would look for, if it does continue up on ETC, is going to be $89.71. But again, you see this asset has been going straight up. So it's hard to believe that eventually all this positive momentum is not going to start to come back down until we find support, which, that $65 zone is probably an area that I would be looking for support. You kind of look at it like the impulse up, come back down to back test old resistance as new support. And then by then you might get, some of the stress relieved on the oscillators here to give you a little bit more room for this price to run up. It does look like about 72 is going to be the all-time highs. I believe that's all-time highs, and the top for now, until you come back down, accumulate a little bit, get a little bit more strength behind the move. Crypto salesman. Nomadic, real quick if I got time. This is one I've been following here. Let me get back onto the 4-hour chart. Not sure if I called this one out on stream, but same thing that we were looking at with those other assets. You had this nice rounding bottom accumulation after this big impulse up. Same thing. You've got bullish divergent. I could talk. Bullish divergence developed on the MACD. You broke this neckline here of the rounding bottom accumulation, and the 100% measured move of Nomadic was 82 cents, which is where I took profit on this asset. And same thing, we topped out, it's coming back down. It almost look like we're starting potential, maybe a bearish. Oops. You might get something like that. If we end up finding support down here, you could be getting a bearish harmonic, which would give you a nice long leg up from this point. It looks to be getting a reaction. And this is the 4-hour chart on Nomadic, so this is actually pretty good. If you look here on Nomadic, you've got the price still making lows. Price is coming down, less negative momentum, which implies that the sellers are losing control. And right here, if this continues to develop, if this negative momentum continues to wane on Nomadic, that would be your indicator that the sellers have lost control and you'll start to make some higher prices. The RSI, not a lot of help from the RSI. You know, the RSI is showing you convergence here. If the RSI does break this trend downward that it's been in, the RSI starts going up, and this negative momentum starts to, or continues to wane, make, you know, these valleys going up. That's when you're going to see this price. For Matic, I would want to see it get back above this neckline here and regain support above this level. If you look over on the volume profile, you do have a lot of people that were buying in at this level here. So you want to get back on top of that. That would tell me that the buyers have control again. But looking, this is the point where we really want to hold up, and it looks like we're starting to put in a floor here. So if Matic holds up, I believe if we zoom out, yeah, 71.6 is the 1618 retracement. If we get back on top of that and retest this neckline, I think there's a good chance that it's going to continue up. And again, if I missed anybody, man, I do apologize. Toss me a message on Twitter, and I'll put some of these charts up there live for you guys.
Yeah, I did throw your Twitter in the chat. I'm going to, again, real quick, just like as you said, if anyone has any questions, they can tweet at you.
I thought this whole time, man, I've been looking at the chat window.
Are you in the private chat where there was nothing going on?
I was in the private chat still, and it was dead. I'm like, man, it must be a slow night. I figured the stock market wasn't great today, so figured we might have had a quiet night on our hands.
No. Come on now. All right. Well, you know, it wasn't a great day in the stock market, but it was a good day in the crypto market, or at least for some people, if you were holding some Ethereum or Doge. So
diversify, man. If one market's bad and the other one's doing good, just focus your attention, you know, where the getting's good.
Yep. Well, we do have another show coming up. We got Ruel's report. We'll be talking about some more cryptos as well as some, you know, some different kind of new altcoins. So I'm excited about that.
Cool.
So if y'all want to, you know, those of you watching with us tonight, if you want to stick around for Ruel's report, please do. Like I said, some new altcoins, exciting. I think we're going to talk about some pancake swap. I
might stick around for that one.
Yeah, you should. There are some good questions in the chat. Maybe I'll send you the you know, StreamYard link and you can hop back in with us.
Hey, there you go. Yeah, cake was one I did really good earlier this year. We were up like 500% on that.
Wow.
So
that's what I like to hear.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, well, I'll message you on Twitter and we'll be connected.
I appreciate it, guys. Hit the likes for me if you could.
Yeah, smash the like for Trading Nomadic. Bam.
Thanks again, brother.
All right, y'all. We'll be back.